It is a special edition of 4020 Not Live, because joining us this afternoon, or this morning, or this evening, whenever you're watching or listening, is Garreth Carvell from the Rugby League Players Association. Garreth, thanks for joining us. How excited are you with this full-time role? I know you've been involved before, but how excited are you at the moment to get back involved?
Yeah, really. I've sort of been involved since 2015 with the JMB trade union and the RLPA branch. And all that time, it was a case of trying to get a representative for the players, a player's voice, and have that official sort of title to it. And that's happened. So, yeah, the funding was sort of pulled away at the end of 2020. And then, obviously I moved on to Lee. Then in the background, still working on my passion really, which is which is fairness, and the players in the game, and wanting to try and do my little bit that that helps the game from what I've got out of it. So yeah, it's really exciting. The players are they're on board and they're excited too.
I mean, how important is that? Because we've seen various initiatives and unions and players groups in the past that have come and gone. How important is it that the players buy in and really get behind it this time?
It won't work unless that happens. Absolutely, it doesn't. So the NRL, they've got their RLPA over there, and they did a similar thing that was sort of what we've done and trying to gain traction for a long time. And it wasn't until 2014, I think it was, when they had 100% sign up by all the players, and that's when it just took off. That's when the player's voice was. It's not about the player's voice being heard. That's great, but it's actually taking actions from it and listening to it, and having an actual say in certain things. So having the players buy into it, that's what it's about. Ultimately, what I want is to do himself out of a job. I want the players that into it that. Actually, we don't need you guys anymore. What we'll do is we're going to run it ourselves, and that empowering those players to do that's the goal, really.
I guess there are two initial questions, both extremely easy for you to answer. The first would be: is there a sense of unity among the players? Because clearly, any organisation has a diversity of opinion, but have you got a majority opinion on most of the things? And the other question, I suppose, that leads on to that is: what actually do players want out of the game, or would like to have a voice in?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of buy-in. There's a lot of people. I think a lot of players maybe go about it the wrong way on social media and things. There are channels now that we can discuss things, and if there are any issues or anything like that, we can go down the proper route and be able to sort it. But I think the players have bought into it. They've been calling for it for such a long time that the RFL and the clubs have had to listen, and that's why it's official. And there's a full-time rep in place now. But I think from the players' point of view, the main issues, it's all around sort of the player welfare. And the thing that confuses a lot of people is there's a massive emphasis on player welfare. So, for example, the head knock protocol, extending that to 11 days so that you miss that game. There's talk of having limited amount of contact within training. All sorts of things, around player safety and player welfare. Yet there are times when we play Friday and Monday, 3 times this year, and they get, and if you're to play as a player, say you're in a good enough team to be able to go to each final and then play international, you're going to be playing around about 45 games in a season, which is a lot of games. And it's great that looking at training and loads and all this sort of thing, the science behind it is great, and I think it is the way to go. But then you need to take the same into account when we're playing. And I think overall, if you've got, I mean, this is my view, and I think a lot of people agree with it. If you've got less games, it's safer for the players. And you're going to have more players on the field that you want to see. So you're starting 17 really. Plus the games are going to be more high quality. The thing is, people will argue that you use squad rotation, but the squads are getting smaller. You know, even from last year, the squads are small. I mean, I think Saints, I think they've gone from 36 to 30. So it's quite a significant drop. So there's that side of things to think about as well. So it is all around sort of ensuring that they can perform to the best and safely, you know, and making sure that what they're asked to do, they can do. They want to, you know, they love the game like I did, like we all do. And you want to perform to your best. You don't want to be tired and, you know, picking up injuries under fatigue. I mean, the games now are, I think, is it, you know, don't quote me on it, but I think it's the ball's in play around about 67 minutes in a game now in Super League. So there's that on top of it as well. Plus, you take when we took the scrums away, I know they've been reintroduced, but not fully. Then there's the 6 again. Then, you know, so it's not only that there's more games, there's more times within those games as well, which causes fatigue, which makes it, you know, believe me, when you're fatigued, you'll flop about like a dead fish. I've done that plenty of times. And you know, you get yourself in the wrong position and everything else. So there's that factor, plus, you know, the sort of strain on the body. So yeah, there's that sort of thing to look at. To me, it's just it's giving less in game time to get more quality. I think that's the way, and to have our players safe. I'm not sure about the stats, but I'd like to. I think there'd be quite a big difference in players that get knocked out in a game and players that get knocked out at training. You know, and we're reducing the training hours, yet increasing the game time. So, to me, that doesn't add up, and it doesn't to the players.
So that's really interesting. The first thing you talk about is welfare, and I'm sure we'll come back to how that relates to disciplinary findings. But interestingly, you didn't mention economics. And normally when it comes to sort of union representation, that's the first thing when you sit around the table. What is the lot of the player like at the moment? Because I don't think we as fans fully appreciate the sacrifices that players have made in terms of wage cuts. We know the furlough scheme was very important. But where are the players at the moment? They're clearly undervalued. But, you know, how's it look going forward?
But it is what it, at the moment, it is what it is. There's a certain amount of money that comes in. The clubs make a certain amount of revenue, and that's it. The thing around the welfare and the less games and the higher quality and all that, I think personally that the economics will look after themselves. You know, if you get a better game, you're going to attract more sponsorship. If you get a cleaner game, if you know, all these little things that you look after, and don't worry about the money. The money will sort itself out. That will come. You know, all you've got to do is make sure you're doing the little things and improving the game. I think the problem we've sort of had, you know, from my time anyway, in the last 20 years, the game hasn't changed that much, especially when it comes to money and what have you. And my sort of view is not, you know, that things haven't changed, so we're still the same. So why not try something? In 5 years' time, 5 years is going to go anyway. So why not try something? And in 5 years' time, we can look back and say, well, you know, we'd have just been in the same position if we hadn't have tried it. You know, but it might actually change something. But I think when it comes to money, it's, you know, it is the old trade union, get your flags out and all the rest of it. But, you know, that's not what it's about. We understand that clubs have a certain income. Sky pretty much bankroll Rugby League. And it's great that we're getting into other channels as well, and trying to expand that, which I think needs to happen. But at this moment in time, it is what it is. When it came to the cuts and what have you through COVID, again, it wasn't that the clubs wanted to cut money to make themselves bigger profits. They were going to go under. You know, it was really as dire as that. So having to negotiate the cuts throughout the whole league, it was difficult, but totally. And the clubs, by the way, were really transparent. We got to see their accounts and all sorts of things that, you know, that proved, look, these cuts are absolutely necessary. And that's what we could relay back to the players. And that was the really positive thing about the whole setup. You know, players have always, and I was the same when I was playing, you always have this conspiracy theory, and you're always being conned, and they're doing this because of, you know, they're trying to hide money, or well, that sort of went because we saw it all. You know, we could vouch for it and make sure that actually this is fair, and that's what it was about. It wasn't about trying to save clubs any money. It was about sort of fairness, and I think the players need to, you know, a massive credit to the players for actually taking it, because they didn't have to. They had contracts there, you know, and they could have quite easily gone, no, do you know what? I'm still playing. I've still got a contract. I'm taking my contract. So you know, massive kudos to the players for basically saving a lot of clubs, because that's exactly what happened.
I think one of the impressive things we've seen this week from one of the players is Will Price's reaction to his suspension. 10 games is you know, a big chunk out of his season, but he's taken it on the chin. He's come out and he's taken responsibility for his actions. In the past, we've seen far more senior players than him not take responsibility. Is that part of your role, to get players to accept that sometimes they will be in the wrong, and that going on social media and bleating about it probably isn't the right thing to do?
Well, I've had nothing to do with that, with Will Price acting how he did, but I'm really impressed. But I'm not surprised at all. Leon was pretty much the same. Leon's dad, I know Leon's dad, and the humble people, the respectful people, very respectful family, and it's his core values. That's how it is, and I've no doubt that Leon would have said to him, "You've absolutely," because Leon's done it before, as he's played, so he knows exactly what he's going through. You don't intend to go and do that, what he did, but it happens in the heat of the game. Everything's going 100 miles an hour. Things happen, and the way he's took it, I think everyone should have a look at that and say that's what we need to do. You know, whether it was fair, whether it wasn't. You know, I think it's pretty fair, especially considering that he'd done it previously in I think it was 21 in the academy season, 20 in the academy season. So, you know, he's got a bit of form there, but we are having a meeting actually about the disciplinary and why the sanctions are what they are. So obviously we've had a lot of calls from players to say what's this, what's that. I've seen it on social media, but I think again these channels, if you know, and I'm good friends with Watto there at Huddersfield as well, and you know they've handled it. There's no appeal. Yeah, he's done wrong. He gets to sit down and lick his wounds and learn from it, and that's the attitude they've taken. So from his family, from his coach, from the coaching staff, from the club, they've all taken the attitude that actually you've done wrong, so you take your penalty. That's it. You don't moan about it. You get on and make yourself stronger, fitter, faster for when you come back in 10 weeks and the NRL are looking at him.
we are 6 weeks into the. You mentioned earlier what we can do in 5 years' time. We're 6 weeks into the season. We already seem to be rolling back on what's changed, with what's going to be a yellow card and what's a red card and what's this and what's that. How important is it that the players have more, not necessarily just of a say, but are communicated to better, perhaps? Has that been the issue this season?
Nailed it. Yeah, absolutely nailed it. That's what it is. It's communication. So, you know, I had a meeting yesterday with the RFL and members of the law committee about sort of the cards and what's happening. Now, that was one of the sort of things that came out of that. It was that things need to be communicated better. It's a simple, the rules around attacking the head and everything else, you know, nothing's changed. Again, it comes down to the safety and whether the interpretation's being looked at different. We're not sure, and that's why we had the meeting. That's why we want to get to the bottom of it, to say, right, okay, well, what exactly are you looking for in this situation? So we'll have that conversation with Paul Cullen and, you know, representatives of the players, coaches, and well, everyone else really that wants to attend that's within that law committee. So yeah, it's 100% communication. And the problem I think we have as well is we constantly look at Super League and we communicate things to Super League. And, you know, there are two other leagues below that have got quality players, quality coaches, players that potentially will play Super League and international, and, you know, that are coming through. They need to be treated the same. So whatever's happening in Super League, it sort of needs to be replicated, and that's the communication as well, I think.
I mean, you mentioned right at the very beginning that there's been a groundswell from even within the RFL to welcome more proper player representation, and that it's almost reached a point where it can't be denied. What areas would you like to be represented on? I mean, clearly there's now a new body being set up that's looking for independent directors. That's mainly a commercial aspect. Is that something that, again, that you think a player should have representation on? Will be pushing for individual club boards maybe to have player representation, the RFL board of directors to have a player on it? Because presumably that's where you can make the most impact.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is, and it's that progression. But the trust and the need needs to be made first, you know. So I think the problem that we had straight away was that you say trade union and everyone thinks the 1970s and strikes and, you know, all this fighting, getting arrested, all the rest of it. Well, it's come so far from that it's almost unrecognisable. And I think what as part of my role now, what we've got to do is build that trust and show why I'm representing players, what players want. We're not, you know, like it was good that you mentioned, you know, the first thing I've not mentioned is economics, because that's, to me, it's not that important. It's of course it's important to everyone. You can't live without money, but actually there are bigger things, and to get to that point, there's a process, and part of that process is building the trust and making sure that actually what we do is right by the players, of course, because we're representing the players, but it's also right by the clubs and right by the game, because in my view, everyone wants the same thing. You, me, whoever owns a rugby club, at the head of RFL, we all want the game to succeed and be the best it possibly can. So why can't we all work together to achieve that? Yes, there's going to be differences of opinion, and you know, there are going to be spats here and there, but that's all part of it. You know, and you know, I quite enjoy that sort of side of things as well. So it's good that we're at this stage, and I think now we've built enough trust to get to this stage. Now it's sort of the proof of the pudding's in the eating, really, where, right, what do you do now? So yeah, the idea would be, it'd be great to be a part of, to be almost treated like another club. You get a vote and, you know, all the rest of that, but we're not there yet. What we need to do is make sure that we do a good enough job to be able to get some credit and get a reputation for doing the right thing for the game, doing the right thing, you know, despite what may come up against us as well. So yeah, we'll get there. But it's a long-term thing as well, and this is the thing that frustrates me about rugby league. Everything's short-sighted, everything's short-term, everything's to look at next season, you know, and I get that. You know, the clubs are literally one season to the next, so I understand that. But what tends to happen is you're just on a treadmill. You're not going anywhere. You know, there's no sort of real massive long-term plan. 5 years here, we'll be here. 10 years, 15, and that I think needs to change a little bit. It's easy saying that, you know. And if you ask me now, how do you change that? I couldn't really answer you. But I've been more than happy to be part of that process, you know, and making sure that the players are. And that if there is a process to go, you know, so this is the 10-year plan, that the players are aware of it and they understand, instead of, right, well, this is happening now because we haven't got a say, and it's just it's just happening. We're just pieces of meat and all the rest of it. Instead, they can, you know, whatever's going on can come to me and I can explain that to the group of players that I've got as representatives. Or if necessary, go see every club. And again, it comes back to that communication. That's what it's about. That's the key, absolutely key. Making sure that everything's transparent, there's communication there, because there's nothing worse than things happening, no one talking about it, and it gets worse and worse in everybody's head and speculation. And this is the thing on, you know, it's on social media as well. The RFL never respond to any tweets or anything like that. So you get a lot of negative tweets, which I've noticed a lot since I've come back onto Twitter. There's a lot of negativity around all the games and everything. You know, there's 50 fantastic things that happen in a game. There's one mistake that lasted 2 seconds, and that's what everyone jumps all over. And that's frustrating from sort of my point of view. But it means that, you know, you're that type of thing is sort of held back from the players as well. So making sure that they don't go ahead and you know, if they get a couple of games banned, they're asking people. But the RFL cannot respond. So what tends to happen is that builds the fire, stokes the fire. Oh, they've not responded, so it must be true. You know, it's a little bit like that. So then whatever anybody says, because they're not denying it, is true. So that's how things, you know, so there's that side of things as well that's quite frustrating about the social media aspect. But it would be good to see the RFL respond from time to time, I've got to say.
I mean, clearly we're not comparing like with like, but you mentioned the communication being the most important thing, that the job that the RLPA in Australia have done. Clearly they're trying to tap into more resource than players here have got, but the collective bargaining agreement seems to work over there. Admittedly, it's easier when the salary cap is higher, but they seem to have a respect that their opinion is sought. Will you be speaking to Clint Newton about how that organisation has managed to get to the position that they're at?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I know Clint. I meet him when he's over here. I'm meant to be going over there next week, actually, but I've got other commitments for a welfare forum over in Australia. But yeah, I speak to Clint. I speak to Clint regularly. There's a difference with, so over there it is the RLPA, the Rugby League Players Association. It's an association. Over here we're tied into the GMB trade union and all their resources. So there's a bit of a legality issue around how they do it in Australia and how we can do it. But absolutely, I think it's key that there's you know, that there is a central contract that allows players to legally have this, legally have that, and part of that would be, you know, perhaps down the line to make it the second RLPA, and you know, and join it up with the Australian version, and whatever works. You know, like I said before, I like to keep my options open, because I want the game to succeed. And you know, I'm not averse to listening to anything or doing anything if I think it's sensible, which is most things. So, but I think the key thing is the cash over there. And the clubs have really bought into it and given a pot of money to the RLPA that can do a lot with it. Now, over here, it's very sort of similar if you look at it with Rugby League Cares. So the RLPA in Australia do everything that Rugby League Cares and the GMB do. So they'll look after all the legality side, like the GMB, yet they'll do the education and welfare and everything else like Rugby League Cares. So that's where, you know, I've made a real conscious effort to join up with Rugby League Cares, so that there's a whole sort of welfare system around them. Rugby League Cares looks after basically anything non-legal and anything controversial. They're a charity, you know, they don't want to be embroiled in anything controversial or you know, anything damaging towards a charity. We can do that. You know, we can look after the legal side and you know, and have those exchanges with people that perhaps need to happen in order to move forward. So as it is over here, it works really well as long as Rugby League Cares are there, and it's pretty much the same. But absolutely, the funding is key. Obviously, the more funding you've got, the more you can do. You know, the more players, representatives I'd have won at every club and sat on every board, and you know, and make sure that everything's linked up and we've got a real presence. But unfortunately, we've got one. You know, and it's not a big wage either. I'm gonna say that it really isn't. So we have to build on it. We have to build on that. But it's a great starting point. It is. You know, we've not been here, but this is the closest. We're here. We've got a full-time players rep that's you know, approved by the clubs and the RFL. So it's a massive step, but one step at a time.
So obviously you've got a slightly smaller budget than, say, the PFA or the Professional Cricketers Association. Are you able to learn from what they do in terms of how they represent their place and their representing governing bodies?
It's strange because actually we're better. We're better at that. So the GMB is a member of the GMB. So that's what the guys do: is sign up and become a member of the GMB trade union. As a member, you're entitled to full legal access, basically. So anything that comes up within your employment, you're covered. You're covered. You know, to employment tribunal, to whatever you want to go to, you will have a solicitor provided, and off you go. Whereas what tends to happen with the PFA, with cricket, with even over in Oz, they're an association. They're not, so they don't have those legal people within the organisation as such. They probably have to outsource, and it's not something that they like Rugby League Cares. It's not something they're used to dealing with. So actually, it's, you know, seeing the cricket unfold and what's going on there is, you know, you'd think, why hadn't that been sorted a lot earlier? And I've got to say, I think part of what happened over, you know, within the cricket, sort of pushed us along as well. So the RFL saw that and said, look, if they'd have had a players representative properly embedded within the game, those people that are having issues would have been able to approach them, and they could have sorted it. You know, you'd like to think, or, you know, they could have escalated it and gone through the proper channels, and this issue wouldn't be there. So the RFL seeing that, you know, that was part of it as well, to say, well, if this is going on in rugby league, we want the players to have an outlet and be able to discuss it and get the proper support, instead of just sat there knowing that, well, it just happens within the game. You know, that's not good enough. So credit to the RFL as well, you know, for doing that. But I'm not going to complain, because it gets players represented, and that makes me happy.
The sport is growing all the time. As you mentioned, the Super League Championship.
Oh, no, it's gone. It's gone. The sport's gone.
Sorry, I forgot. The game's gone soft. It's dead now.
Yeah, it's gone soft as well. I forgot. Yeah.
Obviously, in the women's and wheelchair game, players aren't being paid yet, but is there room for them in the future to come into the association and get that help that obviously the professionals can get as well? Yeah,
and we do. You know, that's the women's game. We've got to get the club visits in and make sure that we're speaking to those women, because it's not, the good thing about how it works within rugby league is that the GMB also represent them in the workplace. So that's what it's great for the part-time players. So if you're working in a garage and playing part-time rugby, and you've got an employment problem at the garage, we sort that as well. So it's sort of, it covers all that, and especially with the guys not getting paid, you know, properly in the women's game, wheelchair, like you say. Yeah, it's still that sort of, right, we need to move that to the next level so that they are getting competent. It is more professional. I mean, the women's game, especially as it's go on leaps and bounds. But then you look at Australia and they seem to just taken off, and you're like, oh, I can't do anything. I need to catch them. But that's all comes down to what I spoke about right at the beginning, and I know it is Super League, because that's what brings in the revenue. We get that game sorted. We get the players happy, safe, no controversy, making sure that the best players are on the pitch the majority of the time. Then that increases and that happens. You know, the women do get paid. There's more money within the game to be able to do all the things you're talking about. So it's again, it comes down. You know, we're talking money, but actually it's not about money. It's about improving things to be able to. It's an after effect that comes naturally. So improving the little things to make sure that we've got a game to be able to, you know, Channel 4 come along and say, actually, we want to buy it all off Sky. Say, well, okay, let's speak to Sky about that. And instead of the Sky money being halved, it's doubled. You know, and it is as simple as that. You know, that's wishful thinking and me rose-tinted glasses. But, you know, if it happened that easy, it'd be great. But yeah, of course, you know, we want to get everybody playing rugby league professionally. That's the thing. And if you can make a good living out, and I've done it, and it is absolutely fantastic. You know, I'd have done it for free. Don't tell anyone, but I would have done it for free. So when they started paying me, it was great. And if we can encourage people to do that, plus as well, what's going to grow the game is more kids playing. And this is the thing again about, you know, the social media stuff being so negative. It needs to be positive in order to get those kids excited about it. You know, there was no social media back in my day, but we used to go on the school field and dive like Gary Schofield, or do a crab handoff like Ellery Hanley, and, you know, all these sort of things, because they were our heroes, and that's what you want to create. Now, the academy system might have something to do with what's happening with that and scholarships, and you know, I'm not keen on scholarships. I think it's too young. You have no idea what someone's going to do at 14, 15 compared to when they're 18, but that's down the line. But it's getting more people engaged, full stop. Women's rugby, wheelchair, kids, your grandma, whatever. And if they're playing rugby, I'm happy.
You'll be getting an invoice from Gary Hetherington now if you said he'd have played for nothing.
Oh no, he did pay me nothing. Don't worry about that.
We started a campaign a long time ago that the world's stakeholders should be banned. But clearly it's one that is used a lot. And there's a lot of talk now, particularly with the strategic working group, that they are going to have an all-encompassing debate with every section of the game about how it should move forward. Would you expect and hope to be part of that discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think anybody that, you know, that is sort of influential, who's got, you know, a bit of pull, I suppose. But those players that are playing, the representative, I think, should be there, you know, and that's what it's about. Everybody, you know, they can tell you anything, you know, the amateur clubs that as a player at an amateur club, you're playing because you want to be a professional player. And so absolutely the players' representative should be there, you know, and within that. And I think anybody that can help, anybody that has good ideas and is willing to work with everyone else to come to the main goal, which is improve the game. Yeah, I do. I think you know, I think they should be there. I think anybody that can help, because you know, there seems to be a sort of a disjointed approach with the amateur game, and you know, and I think. And the professional game, and then there was that disjoint between Super League and the RFL, which has been resolved, and you know, so it all seems to just sort of, we can do that better. No, we do that better. We do that better. Let's work together and try and sort something out that right. What do we all agree with that's going to work? But what's going to make our game better? That's going to engage young children. That's going to engage more supporters. That's going to engage fans. Sponsorship, you know, engage TV. What we're going to do is that sort of big view that I think everybody needs to take, instead of sort of fighting their own battles within their own back garden. So yeah, I'd love to be on that.
in summing up, the game's not dying. The players are going to be happier eventually, and we need more positivity, positive thinking, as Morecambe White said.
100%. 100%, yeah, that's the thing. I was shocked. I've not been on Twitter for a long time, and you know, I'd watch again and have a quick look on Twitter. And I'm like, oh God, that did happen. But wow, why is there so many? Why is there a big long feed about it? You know, and you're thinking, well, okay, but you know, and the game's gone soft. I'm like, I saw Morgan Knowles the other day. I said, you've gone soft. What? He's one of the toughest players I've seen for a long time. You know, and if you see some of the hits and things, the play acting and things like that. Now I don't agree with it, and the players don't. And there are a select few that are doing it, and that'll be gone. Because it's not within the spirit of the game. You know, it's as simple as that. And I think peer pressure and everything else will change that. But the game's not gone soft. There's no way on earth. I challenge anyone who thinks it's gone soft to go and play a full season at Super League and see what they do. See if they think it's soft. Play a full season anywhere for that matter.
That's the challenge. Gareth, thank you very much for your time this morning. We've run out of time as ever. But I think it's been interesting and illuminating and positive. And that's the main thing. There's plenty of positivity around. And as long as everyone has their say and everyone gets listened to, more importantly, then things will get better for everyone.
Exactly. That's what we want. God love Rugby League.
No sign of you going out on strike, putting the Arthur Scargill hat on with a bin on fire with Sam Tomkinson next to you.
I'll never say never. That sounds like a good fun dress outfit, actually. I might go on the Mad Monday, one of the Mad Mondays with that. It's a good call.